What would you do if someone tried to humiliate you in front of a crowd, only to realize they'd just picked the wrong damn person? That's exactly what happened the day Derek Morrison, a self-proclaimed martial arts expert with the ego of a prizefighter, decided to make an example out of a woman who wasn't there to prove anything, but sure as hell knew how. So there I was, standing in the back corner of the elite fitness center, minding my business like I always do, stretching out with my best friend Sarah beside me. I'm 41, not flashy, not loud. Just someone who's been around long enough to know when a man's about to let his ego run the show. Sarah had dragged me to this fancy gym after months of pestering. "You'll love the mats, Maya. They're Real Olympic spec," she said. Yeah, she was right. But what she didn't warn me about was Derek. You ever met someone who talks like they invented the thing they're doing? That's Derek. Big guy, probably 6 feet 2 inches, loud, thick arms, black belt tied just tight enough to remind everyone of it every time he moved. He was holding court in the martial arts section, surrounded by a little crowd, mostly newbies and wide-eyed teenagers. He was doing roundhouse kicks, shouting about biomechanics like he was writing the next martial arts Bible. I watched for all of 30 seconds before noticing. Man's hip rotation was trash. His base? Wobbly. Recovery? Sloppy. But hey, he had charisma, I'll give him that. I tried to ignore it. Really, I did. But when he nearly tripped himself doing a high kick and still strutted like a peacock, something inside me winced, physically. So I said, soft and respectful, "Actually, the hip should rotate more, and the pivot on the support leg helps you maintain balance." I said it like I was commenting on the weather. But in that gym, you'd think I slapped his mama. He turned, eyes narrowed, lips curled, and you could see the whole room lean in. "Excuse me," he said, chest puffed, voice getting that clipped tone guys get when their pride takes a hit. "Did you just try to correct my technique?" I smiled, hands raised. "Just an observation." "Sorry." He stepped closer. "No need to be sorry. Just don't come in here throwing YouTube knowledge around like you know what you're talking about." Sarah shifted next to me. "She wasn't trying to start anything," she said. But Derek wasn't talking to us anymore. He was talking to the audience. This is what I'm saying, people. Everyone's a martial artist now because they've seen a couple TikToks. No respect for real training. I should have walked away. Should have just nodded and let him drown in his own voice. But no. He leaned in and said, "Tell you what, sweetheart. Why don't you show us what you got?" Now, I've been in this game too long. I competed internationally, trained under instructors who'd eat Derek alive before breakfast. But I'd learned to keep it quiet. In martial arts, there's this thing, especially if you're a woman, you train twice as hard to get half the recognition. You get used to letting guys talk. But something about the way he said it, "sweetheart," hit that nerve I've spent years learning to ignore. "I'm just here to train," I said calmly. "But it's important for the students to see what real technique looks like," he barked, arms wide, inviting the crowd in like a street performer about to pull a rabbit from his GI. The gym manager James looked like he wanted to disappear. "Maybe tone it down," he offered weakly. But Derek was in too deep. At that moment, a teenager named Tommy, bless his heart, asked Derek a legitimate question about chamber position on a front kick. Derek launched into a half-correct answer, gesturing toward me like I was some background prop. See, folks, when you have real experience, you don't need to show off, you teach. But people who just watch from the sidelines, they criticize. The crowd was swelling. At least 30 people now, phones coming out, whispers flying. Sarah leaned in, voice low. "Let's bounce. This guy's got a death wish, and you're about to be the reaper." But then Derek threw the bait again. "Let's spar. Light. Friendly. Just a demonstration. You ever been pushed into a corner so carefully you didn't even realize it until your back hit the wall?" That was me. If I refused, I'd confirm everything he was saying. If I agreed, I'd be playing into his circus. But something about the way he kept smiling, like he'd already won, lit that old fire in me. I didn't come here to prove anything, but damn it, I wasn't going to be his punchline either. "All right," I said quietly, unzipping my jacket and stepping onto the mat. "Let's make it quick." The gym turned into an arena. Derek warmed up like he was about to enter the octagon, shoulder rolls, shadowboxing, barking tips to the onlookers. "See, when you're sparring a beginner," he explained, "you have to pull your punches. Don't want anyone getting hurt." I stretched silently in my corner, my body sliding into old rhythms. Legs wide, hips open, joints unlocking like they remembered who I really was. That's when I noticed a young man watching me. Marcus, maybe 17, his eyes wide like he'd just spotted a tiger in a petting zoo. She moves different, he whispered. That's not gym stuff. Derek called me forward. Ready? He grinned. I nodded. You tell me. We circled. He started slow, telegraphing every move, clearly expecting me to flinch. I didn't. Then he threw a jab-kick combo. Predictable. I slipped the jab, pivoted, and tapped his ribs with a crescent kick so fast he didn't register the contact until he stepped back, blinking. That wiped the grin. He came in harder. A high kick, sloppy. I caught his leg midair, twisted slightly, and dropped him on his ass without breaking a sweat. The crowd gasped. Sarah chuckled under her breath. Oops. Derek scrambled up, face red now. No more Mr. Nice Guy. He charged. I pivoted, swept his leg again, and let him land with a thud so loud the whole gym fell silent. Want to keep going? I asked, voice calm. He hesitated. His pride told him yes, but his body, his ego, and probably his ancestors were all screaming no. That's enough, he muttered. Good. Good control. I bowed slightly, stepped off the mat, and started collecting my things. No cheers. No dramatic music. Just stunned silence, and a few new whispers of respect. As Sarah and I walked out, Tommy jogged over. Miss, what style do you practice? I smiled. A little bit of everything. He nodded like he'd just met a superhero. Maybe he had. Behind us, Derek sat on the mat, nursing his pride like a bruised rib. Lisa, his top student, stared at me with a look I couldn't quite read. Part awe, part reflection, like maybe something had shifted inside her too. And you know what? Maybe that's the real victory. Not beating him on the mat, but cracking the image he'd built around himself. So, tell me, if you'd been Maya in that moment, would you have walked away, or stood your ground and made the room remember your name? Drop your thoughts below. Do you think Maya did the right thing? Was Derek just teaching, or was that a straight-up public takedown he deserved? Let's talk. 2 days later, I'm back at the gym, not because I wanted a rematch, not because I needed validation, but because training's part of my life, and no man's tantrum was about to change that. Sarah had taken the day off, so it was just me, my bag, and the usual smell of rubber mats and ego. I thought maybe the buzz from the other day would have died down by now, but man, was I wrong. The moment I walked through the door, I felt it. You know that thick, heavy silence where people pretend they're not watching you, but everyone suddenly becomes extra interested in the floor? That. Heads turned, whispers floated. I caught snippets. That's her. No way. She flipped him twice. He still came in yesterday limping. And there, at the edge of the mat, was Derek. Alone. No crowd. No lecturing. No dramatic stretches. Just him, tying his belt slowly, eyes locked on mine like he'd been rehearsing a speech for 48 hours straight. Hey, he said, his voice quieter this time. I nodded. Walked past him without stopping. I wasn't there to dance that dance again. But then something weird happened. Tommy, the teen with the big eyes from before, came jogging up to me with this hopeful, awkward energy. Miss Maya, would you maybe be willing to show me that counter you used? The sweep? I blinked. You sure your instructor's okay with that? He glanced back at Derek. Honestly, I don't even know who to ask anymore. That hit harder than I expected. I hesitated, then nodded. All right, grab a pad, but only if you promise to listen more than you talk. Tommy grinned like I'd just handed him the golden ticket. For the next 20 minutes, we worked quietly in the corner. Nothing flashy, just clean footwork, balance drills. Some simple concepts that most people skip over. A few other members drifted closer, watching without saying much. Even Lisa Park showed up, Derek's black belt student. She stood with her arms crossed. Skeptical at first, but she didn't leave. Then, halfway through a footwork drill, Derek walked over. I didn't mean for things to get out of hand the other day, he said, his voice lower than usual. Almost human. I kept my focus on Tommy. You mean the part where you mocked me in front of 30 people? Or the part where you tried to physically dominate me to save face? He flinched. Yeah. Both. I looked up. His shoulders were tight, eyes tired. Why? I asked. I guess I've spent so long being the guy with all the answers. I didn't know how to handle being wrong. That silence again. Not awkward this time, just honest. Lisa stepped closer. You were wrong, Sensei. We all saw it. But the way you handled it, that's what I can't shake. That landed heavy. Derek looked like he was swallowing glass. I've been doing martial arts since I was 16, he said. But I've never had anyone make me feel that small in front of a room. Not even in tournaments. I stood, dusted off my hands, looked him dead in the eye. I didn't make you feel small. You did that all by yourself. Tommy froze. Lisa stared. But you've got a choice now, I added. You can keep pretending this room is your kingdom, or you can start acting like a leader instead of a performer. Either way, I'm not your enemy. That might have been the first time in a long while Derek didn't have a comeback. And here's the twist none of us saw coming. That night, I got a message request from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Coach Emily, my old Olympic sparring coach. Maya, it read, saw a clip of you on Instagram today. Thought you retired? You teaching again. Turns out some genius had filmed the whole confrontation and posted it online with the caption. She humbled him with a smile. The clip had gone semi-viral in the martial arts community. Comments were split, some folks cheering me on, others defending Derek like he was the last samurai on earth. You should come back, Coach Emily added. I've got a spot for you at the regional camp. Could use someone like you to teach the new generation what real technique looks like. I stared at the message for a long time. The truth is, I had walked away from competitive martial arts not because I stopped loving it, but because I got tired of the politics, the ego, the constant uphill battle just to be taken seriously. But something about that moment, that gym, that ridiculous sparring session, it reminded me why I started in the first place. To fight, not just people, but ignorance, arrogance, and everything that tries to shrink you when you know exactly who you are. So yeah, I texted her back. Let's talk. And the next day, I returned to Elite Fitness with a small surprise. A class outline, a pair of pads, and a quiet little sign on the wall that read, Women's Technique Workshop, taught by Maya Washington. No fanfare, no ego. But by the time I finished the first session, half the room had joined. Lisa, Tommy, 2 other black belts, and even Derek, who watched silently from the back, arms crossed, no smirk this time. We'll see what happens next. I'm not here to tear anyone down, but I'll be damned if I let anyone else try to make me small again. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Should Maya have accepted Derek's apology? Can people like him really change, or are they just good at damage control? And have you ever had to stand your ground when someone tried to shame you in public? Drop your story below. I read every one.